Christ almighty, here we go. All right, so last weekend, the Lions did what they only did twice all of last season, which is lose 27-13 to the Packers in Lambeau in game one of the 2025 season. And for the Lions, this one just kind of felt weird from the get go. I mean, I got a weird feeling before this game. Even the picture on the screen looked kind of weird to me, but maybe that was just the mushrooms from the night before. But, maybe the weather was just too nice in Lambeau. It was pretty picturesque, mid 60s, very sunny. Maybe it just needed to be rainy like last season when the Lions won in Lambeau. But, you just get a weird feeling sometimes, and the team came out just looking kind of weird too. You could tell this was a team that wasn't really meshing well, still has some kinks to work out, and after you lose both of your coordinators and you got new stuff coming in, stuff that they were running was much too different from what they were running before. It's just, different play callers, different kind of personalities out there. So it's just something that they have to work out over time. And the question after this game is just how much time they'll be able to have to work that out before people start panicking, because as we know, Lions fans are not the most rational bunch, and you can't really blame them for that, but we'll get to that later. So the Packers come out and immediately pick on the Lions man coverage on defense like usual. That's something that they'll have to work out. As we all know, the Lions run man coverage more than any team in the league. That's a Dan Campbell culture thing. They really want to man up and try and shut you down. But some teams like the 49ers in games past have been able to scheme up pick plays to defeat that man coverage. And that's exactly what the Packers came out and did in this game. So, new first-time defense coordinator Kelvin Shepard, he's a smart guy. He's going to end up scheming up some stuff to try and disguise that and prevent that. But, week one, first drive of the season, the Packers come out and drive down the field. First drive is always scripted, and they came out with a pretty winning script on that one. And then, with the Lions going into Lambeau, of course, the penalties are going to be weird with the referees. Clete Blakeman leading the crew always tries to screw the Lions. Just some key ones here. Lions had a false start on a really nice punt by Jack Fox, so they had to re-kick, and it's a much worse punt the second time around, which really flipped the field position. J-Mo lining up offsides on offense. That was pretty bad. You got to check in with the rep. They teach that at every level. And then a big holding call negated a Brian Branch pick six, which also could have been a turning point in the game. But we'll get to that when we recap the game here. But quick shout out to the Packers. Y'all loaded up to beat us week one like it was your Super Bowl, so hats off for that. You broke a 3-game home losing streak to the Lions, which is pretty amazing. Always nice to be able to reclaim your home field from a division rival. Jordan Love improves to 2-3 against the Lions in his career. And if my math is correct, this is the first home win against the Lions of his career. Is that right? I know he beat the Lions at Ford Field on Thanksgiving a couple years ago. So if this is his only other win against them, then that's pretty crazy. Home win against the Lions of his career. And the guy that you mortgaged your future for and had to give epidural shots in his back so that he could play got a sack in garbage time, so hats off for that as well. First career sack for the Packers by Micah Parsons. Hope playing through a back injury doesn't come back to bite him, but that's almost never a problem, so it should be fine. Now, some positives for the Lions, because it wasn't all bad. We, of course, have to mention at the top, huge Isaac Tesla catch. Just one of the most beautiful catches you'll ever seen. Week one contender for catch of the year. He goes up with one hand and comes down with that. And they, of course, the way that this game was going, the referees were going, of course they called it not a catch to start off, but eventually overturned and they gave him the touchdown catch. Only Lions touchdown of the game, and it came with like 55 seconds left in the game. They were threatening to snap like a 46-game streak of touchdowns scored in a game, so they're at least able to keep that one alive with quite an impressive display of athleticism by Tesla. And Tesla's a good player, man. He played really well in the preseason, so we definitely got a steal there in the third home special. And it's kind of ironic because the third round hasn't really been all that good for Brad Holmes, so maybe he breaks a streak here with Isaac Tesla instead of guys like Broderick Martin. And Sam Laporta had a pretty good game after kind of a, you don't want to say a down season last year, but definitely not as good statistically of a season as his rookie season. But he got some good catches in space. He was definitely the best Lions receiver out there statistic wise. And then the defense ended up playing well in the second half. They did not play too well in the first half. They always seemed to be a step behind the Packers offense, but in the second half they were able to shut it down mostly. Now they did give up a couple scores, but that was because the defense had a short field against the Packers. So it's good that the defense was able to turn around and play better in the second half. So that bodes well for the future. Now as we go in to the plays of the game, like we said, the Packers came out and they played really well. And of course, the Lions defense helped. The first passing play of the game for the Packers, you get illegal contact on DJ Reed, the new Lions corner. So, that's nothing new. The Lions play physical at the corner spot. And, some big plays there on sportsmanlike conduct on Brian Branch, of course. And then, you end up with a touchdown pass to Tucker Kraft for 15 yards to cap off the opening scoring drive for the Packers. And then the Lions come out. Here we go. You ready for this? Jahmyr Gibbs, left end, rush for 1 yard. Jared Goff, pass short right to Jahmyr Gibbs for 2 yards. Jared Goff, pass short right to Jahmyr Gibbs for -2 yards. So, if you're keeping track at home, that's 3 touches for 1 yard for Jahmyr Gibbs opening drive. And Gibbs set a record for fewest receiving yards in a game with 10 or more receptions. It was just that kind of game. A lot of checkdowns from Goff. And for whatever reason, Goff just held the ball for a long time in this game. I don't know if the receivers just weren't getting open or if the reads he was looking for wasn't there or what it was. But Jared Goff held the ball for a long time in this game, and that's not going to give you any sort of success. Like, Goff was pretty indecisive, which is not a good sign for this new offense under OC John Morton. And the Packers came out in the second drive and kicked a field goal. And on the Lions' second drive, they looked a lot better. They did exactly what they wanted to. They had a very long, methodical scoring drive. They weren't able to get a touchdown, but they were able to get a field goal. 16 plays, 78 yards, 9 minutes and 30 seconds of possession time. So, I mean, that's what you want in that situation. You're down 10-0. You want to take control of the game. It would have been better if they were able to get a touchdown, but their drive stalled down there at the Green Bay 12-yard line. Now, 4th and 5 at the Green Bay 12, you could make a case that they could have gone for it, but they ended up going to get the points. That would kind of be a theme in this game, which is interesting. And then, come out and try to take hold of the game with that long scoring drive on offense. The Packers follow up 2 plays, 65 yards, and a touchdown in 53 seconds. Deep pass down the middle to Romeo Doubs for 48 yards, and then a deep pass to Jaden Reed for 17 yards and a touchdown. I think on the 48-yard pass, he kind of split cover 2, and then, but that's not what you want right there. You tried, like I said, take control of the game and immediately turn around and give a pretty immediate score. And then the Lions went on a pretty decent drive to follow up. They got down into the red zone, but then Jared Goff throws an interception on a little hook route to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, the Packers disguised their coverage on this one. They made it look like they were running some cover for corners, so in theory, the pass should have been open, but a safety swoops down and is able to pick it off because instead of dropping back deep, he ends up playing like a little hook zone. So, turning points of the game, the Lions were playing pretty well. They easily could have made that a 17-10 game, but instead it's an interception and, huge loss of momentum. Like, it's starting to play well and really drive the ball down the field. That little miscue ends the drive. And, you go into the half down 17-3. Now, they were able to force the Packers to punt go 3-and-out, but the half was over. Now the Lions did receive the second half, and they're able to drive down and kick another field goal. 4th and goal at the Green Bay 9. Do you go for that? I mean, you could you could definitely make an argument, but yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs -6-yard run when you're at the Green Bay 10-yard line on 2nd and goal. That's bad. That's a drive killer. And then, like we said, the Lions defense played really well in the second half, forcing back-to-back punts here for the Packers. But unfortunately, the Lions offense wasn't able to do a whole lot with it. The drive for the Lions to start the fourth quarter, you get the ball at the Detroit 8-yard line, and on first down, you immediately get sacked at the goal line, and so you have to punt from the 1. And the Packers end up getting the ball at the Detroit 36 after a 20-yard punt return by Jayden Reed, and that's of course going to set up a touchdown there. 24-6, and then yada yada yada. You get sacked on 4th down, going for it on 4th and 2 at your own 35 for the Lions, and that sets up a Packers field goal, 27-6, and then pride's on the line in garbage time. We drive down the field and we get the Tesla pass for a touchdown to keep the streak alive. So, yeah, bad game for the Lions. But there were a couple turning points that could have worked out in their favor. That interception that Goff threw, that could easily been a touchdown. Then there was that potential pick 6 from Brian Branch that happened. I think it was in the third quarter. So if that Brian Branch pick 6 hadn't been negated by penalty, that could easily be a tie game right there at 17, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And suddenly it's a brand new game. So there are definitely some chances for the Lions to come out on top in this one, but it just didn't fall their way, whether it's penalty, whether it's just the situational stuff. So not quite their game, but as we learned in the Packers' succeeding game against the Commanders, the Packers defense is just that good. So it is a mix of the Lions offense having new stuff to go through, not meshing very well, but also the Packers defense is very good. And so, yeah, it mixed together to come out with that dud of a game, 27-13. But as we move on to week 2, the Lions face off against former offensive coordinator Ben Johnson and his new Chicago Bears team. Now, the Lions play this game at home. It's against their former coordinator, so both teams will be pretty familiar with what they want to do. So this will be a real chess match, I think. It just comes down to whether Ben Johnson tries to pull out all the tricks, tries to outdo himself. Because that's the problem with some of these genius offensive coordinators is they kind of get ahead of themselves and overthink it. And they come out, with some trick play or some play call that seems really good in their head. But when it comes to the execution, it really falters. And it can lead to some pretty bad mistakes and moments in big points in the game. So yeah, Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson, they've been coaching together since like 2014 or so back in Miami. So these guys are very familiar with each other. So it'll be interesting to see how they go about trying to stop one another. Because, Ben Johnson will know exactly what the defense for the Lions wants to do. But then again, the Lions will know exactly what Ben Johnson likes to do on offense. So could this be a high-scoring shootout? Could this be a low-scoring chess match kind of a game, defensive struggle? I don't know, but it's sure going to be an interesting game. Now, the Lions, if they're able to control the game on the ground like they want to, obviously that's like their calling card on offense. It could be a long day for the Bears keeping Caleb Williams off the field. Not that Caleb Williams is anything extraordinary. You could see Caleb Williams come out and score a couple times early, but then falter down the stretch as he's known to do. Not very clutch. So yeah, you could expect some early fireworks from the Bears, but if the Lions are able to just keep it together and play their game no matter what, they'll probably come down the stretch and outgrit the opponent. Now, this game could be closer than people think. It could be like 27-24 or something. I mean, just remember the Thanksgiving game last year. It could be that sort of game. So, yeah, we're looking forward to this one. We're hoping that the Lions are able to get the ship right and not start 0-2. and drop Ben Johnson and the Bears down to 0-2, where they belong, because we don't need them to get inflated ego or anything like that. But I do have a warning for Lions fans, and that is, what are you gonna do if the Lions end up starting 1-5? Because if they lose this game, the schedule's not getting any easier. You have the Browns, the Ravens, the Bengals all in a row. This could be a rough start to the Lions' season if they don't end up pulling this one out at home. So if you're still riding high on last year, or you're on the wagon, make sure that you stay on and grit through any possible turbulence that could happen this year, because it could get rough. It's definitely possible that it gets rough this year. So if you're not riding when things are bad, don't be riding high when they're 15-2 like last year. So uh, not the greatest start for the Lions season. They could right the ship this week, and it's going to be a tough year. See if they can pull it out.